Hello, this is Lieutenant Colonel Howard. Today we will talk about Rightsizing the Army. This is an overview of Lesson F105, which marks the midpoint of F100, the Force Management block. Here are your lesson takeaways. Total Army Analysis is the process that defines the required Army force structure within end strength and accounts for the military and DA civilian requirements and authorizations necessary to comply with DoD guidance. This process determines the best mix of organizational solutions for our future needs. TAA has two phases: Capability Demand Analysis, the quantitative phase, and Resourcing and Approval, the qualitative phase. Key products from this process include the R-Struck memo and the resulting POM force. The Command Plan process produces MTOEs and TDAs, the documents that provide individual unit mission, structure, personnel, and equipment authorizations. Let's go back to the Army Force Management model. So we talked about phases 1, 2, and 3 during F102 and F104. Now we will talk about phases 4 and 5 of force development. This slide illustrates some of the basic planning inputs that the Army uses to develop its programs. We've already talked about how strategy drives force structure development. Planning is a resource-informed articulation of national defense policies and military strategy. This process results in a fiscally constrained guidance and priorities and the identification of capabilities needed to support national strategy. Integrated priority lists, or IPLs, based on combatant commander plans, capture their mission accomplishment needs and influence OSD guidance, such as the DPG. Annual IPLs provide a capability analysis of missions assigned to support strategy development and identify capability gaps. The DPG reflects the Secretary of Defense's priorities for implementing the defense strategy informed by evolving developments in the strategic landscape. The Research, Development, and Acquisition Plan, or RDA, is a 1 to N prioritized list of all research, development, and acquisition program packages, or MDEPs, with funding and quantities for the 5-year POM. We've already discussed the Army Plan. The Army Strategic Plan, Section 2 of the TAP, directs planning and programming across multiple future years defense programs, which arrays cost data, manpower, and force structure over a 5-year period. This strategy guidebook informs Total Army Analysis, or TAA. TAA decisions, which are announced in an Army structure message, provide the baseline force structure used in building the initial POM, or Program Objective Memorandum. We'll talk more about the POM and the Budget Estimate Submission, or BES, during F107. Here's another way to think about how TAA fits into the big picture. TAA is informed by our national strategy. The purpose of TAA is to determine and justify a POM force aligned with the DPG and TAP. The POM force is that force the Army projects it will raise and sustain within projected resources available during the future year's defense plan. TAA provides the analytical underpinnings for the justification of the POM force for use in dialogue with Congress, OSD, the Joint Staff, combatant commanders, and the Army. TAA impacts and provides the basis for structuring organizational, materiel, and personnel requirements, authorizations, and programs. This slide digs a little deeper into the TAA process and its outputs. The bottom line up front is that the Army Structure Memorandum, or R-Struck, is a key output of this process. It announces the force structure decisions and how that document forms the basis of the Army's POM force, that is, the force structure built into the POM. The Capability Demand Analysis, or CDA phase, consists of force guidance and quantitative analysis. G357 derives force guidance from numerous sources to include the National Security Strategy, National Defense Strategy, and National Military Strategy, along with Army Senior Leader guidance. Computer simulations such as the Joint Integrated Contingency Model and the Force Generation Model, or FORGE, provide models that are analyzed to develop the appropriate operating force within the authorized end strength necessary to accomplish the Army's mission with minimum risk. Phase 2 consists of qualitative analysis and further Army Senior Leader review. The Force Feasibility Review, or FFR process, uses the results of the TAA Resourcing Conference as input, conducting a review and adjusting the POM force to assure that it is affordable and supportable. The resulting POM force includes the programmed structure for all Army components throughout the POM years and provides the basis for development of the Army POM submission. It might be helpful for you to think about the TAA process in terms of MDMP by equating the R-struct, the output of this process, as an operations order that guides the Army. Following TAA, we enter Phase 5 of the force development process. Document organizational authorizations. So here is a quick look at the tools and processes that ultimately produce the approved MTOEs, TDAs, and CTAs. The Structure and Manpower Allocation System, SAMIS, provides an automated database necessary to account for and manage all active and reserve component units. SAMIS is the repository of the Master Force, or M-Force, the record of Army force structure from the current year through the end of the POM. The Force Management System maintains the MTOE and TDA files. It contains personnel and equipment authorizations at military, occupational skill, grade, line item number, or LIN, equipment readiness code, and quantity level of detail in each organization. The Structure and Composition System, or SACS, computes the personnel and equipment requirements and authorizations based on the programmed Army force structure. SACS is a product of integrating the input from BOIPs, TOEs, SAMIS, FMS, and resource constraints to compute personnel and equipment requirements and authorizations over the next 10 years. FMS Web is a website that provides access to FMS data, TOEs, MTOEs, BOIPs, TDAs, CTA, JTA, and associated reference data and tools. The Army documents its programmed and budgeted force to Unit Identification Code UIC level of detail to ensure that organizations may place demands on the functional systems of the Army. Upon receipt of the R-struct memorandum, the components and commands prepare to conduct a process called the Command Plan, or C-Plan. The Command Plan is the annual force management process designed to account for and document force structure decisions and directives. The Command Plan results in the approval of the Army Master Force. The Army Master Force will adjust current force structure, establish the programmed force structure, and will align force structure requirements and authorizations with budget data and decisions. The baseline for the Command Plan submission is the latest Headquarters DA Master Force lock point and the latest Headquarters DA approved R-struct memorandum. The Command Plan will focus on documenting MTOEs based on Headquarters DA approved TOEs and TDAs. G37FM initiates the documentation of force structure decisions by issuing the Command Plan guidance to the R staff, commands, and USAFEMSA. USAFEMSA then builds the draft MTOEs and TDAs and distributes them to the R staff and commands for review. After a final review of the documents, the FMS documents are electronically reconciled with the SAMIS database through the Automatic Update Transaction System, AUTS. Finally, the Structure and Composition System, SACS, computes the personnel and equipment requirements and authorizations, integrating the input from BOIPs, TONEs, SAMIS, and FMS. SACS also computes personnel and equipment authorizations and requirements and authorizations for the next 10 years. The resourced force structure approved by Army leadership results in documented organizational authorizations that inform Army commands. Take note of the main differences between MTOE and TDA authorization documents. The MTOE is a modified version of a Headquarters DA approved TOE prescribing a unit type's organization, personnel, and equipment, the required functionality as designed. The MTOE provides the authorizations necessary to perform a mission in a specific geographical or operational environment, the resourced decision. The TDA is an authorization document that prescribes the organizational structure for a unit that has a support mission for which there is no TOE. Normally, TDAs are documented with civilian positions for reasons of efficiency, economy of military manpower, continuity of the organization, where a civilian space would best accommodate this feature, or when there is no TOE for that type of mission or unit. The TDA is similar to the MTOE in that it serves to record the personnel and equipment authorized based on MACOM allocation of resources against requirements. There are 4 specialized types of TDAs. An augmentation TDA augments a modified table of organization, or MTOE, unit during peacetime and war. The augmentation TDA records and documents the Headquarters DA validated missions, organizational structure, personnel, and equipment required for the unit to execute administrative and operational functions unique to that unit and beyond the capabilities of the MTOE. The Joint Table of Authorization, or the Joint Table of Distribution, are documents that authorize equipment and personnel for joint activities supported by 2 or more services. Examples of this would be the Army component for a combatant commander's staff or the Joint Staff. The Full-Time Support TDA documents military, active component, and AGR, as well as federal civil service positions required and authorized to provide full-time support to reserve component MTOE and TDA units. The Mobilization TDA records the mission, organizational structure, personnel and equipment requirements, and authorizations for an Army unit to perform assigned missions upon mobilization. It reflects the unit's mobilization plan by identifying functions to be increased, decreased, established, or discontinued. So this has been a summary of F105, Rightsizing the Army. I hope that this overview has been useful.